In a town 58,000 strong, there moved a foreigner. He was a Jewish man from the ocean. Yet, he traveled to a land with no water to find a new life. He arrived upon plains so big, you could only call it the middle of nowhere. Now, live from a land so vast, this is his cast.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Mayor Candace Machado, Mayor of Evansville. We met at the Hands Off protest a couple weeks ago.
We did.
And I noticed you were the only politician there. What's up with that?
Well, I don't know if I was the only politician there. There might have been some folks out there in the world.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
At ours, at least.
Yes.
At ours.
I always go to the protests. I think that protests are a part of our democracy. Mm-hmm. It's a part of our First Amendment right for free speech. And I think that people should be able to protest things that are important to them and things that matter to them. And all the protests are important to me and matter to me as a politician. And that's why I got into this 5 years ago, was to be a voice for people who don't feel like they have one, and to be a powerful woman voice in the world of politics, especially in Wyoming.
Yes, well, okay, that's another, you already knew what I was going to ask you before I said anything, because
I'm ready. I didn't even know what you were going to say, but I'm ready.
The next thing I wanted to say is we are in Evansville, Wyoming right now, okay? This is just about as Wyoming can get for everybody that doesn't know about Evansville.
Yes, it's a little ironic.
Okay, yes, because you are just about as anti-Evansville, Wyoming stereotypically as somebody could expect.
So I know that it's ironic that I'm a very progressive, very democratic mayor in an industrial town. So my friends and I, and even my staff and I, we joke about it every now and again, like, isn't it ironic that a progressive mayor is the mayor of an industrial town? But I tend to look beyond that point. I tend to look at the businesses that are here, the people that are working, the people that are feeding their families, the people that are, committing to Natrona County. I look at it more that way, that we're helping feeding families, we're helping support local businesses, we're helping nonprofit organizations. I look at it that way so that it helps me to understand why I've been put in this place. I've said countless times to many of people that if the universe was going to take me out of my peaceful slumber, it was going to take me out to fight, and it was going to take me out to fight for what I think is appropriate and what is right, and fighting for human rights, fighting for women's rights, fighting for local businesses. I'm a local business owner myself, and so I think that it's really important to focus on human beings. So I look beyond that point of it.
But when you approach a situation where the human beings that you govern are just start fundamentally from such a different place as you, how do you make that work?
I think that being a social worker for the last 18 years has really helped me to compartmentalize, because one of our core values as social workers is self-determination. And so I don't have to agree or enjoy what a person is doing, but I am going to give them that opportunity to self-determine what they feel is right for them. I might not agree with it, but I'm going to meet them somewhere in the middle while I'm in this role, because a part of my oath that I took was making sure that I could leave, all the bias at the door. I could leave all of my judgment, all of my expectations at the door. So when I'm coming in to the role of a mayor, I'm always going to think about the human rights aspect of things, women's rights aspects of things, but I'm also going to stand very firm with making sure that I'm not trying to bring in my personal bias into that playing field, so that myself and our governing body can make firm decisions when we are making decisions and voting up here.
Would it be fair to say that it's more of a libertarian approach that you take to government then?
That's fair. You know, labels and titles, but that's fair.
Okay, labels and title. Right. Okay. I will force you to say a label or a title as much as I want to, because it would make great content. I don't know. we could blow up together if you want to say something outlandish.
You know, you could tell me that I'm a mayor that likes glitter and rainbows and puppy dogs and sunsets. That wouldn't be a lie. I mean, anybody who knows me well enough knows that I'm going to fight for what I believe in, but I'm going to do it strategically.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Okay, let's talk about education and the school board and the state government then, because you said the right to self-determination.
Yep.
And I'm getting the feeling myself that they're not about that currently with some of the bills that are being introduced in the state legislature and the local county school board. Where do you fall on this stuff? I'll let you can pick some, I can bring up some. What's going on?
You know,
fill people in for what I'm talking about, or I can fill people in if you don't want to.
You know, I think that, because I've lived in Wyoming almost all of my life in respect to maybe a year that I didn't live here, a year,
Where'd
maybe
you go?
2 years. I was born in Oklahoma. And so I was born in another red state. So I was born in Oklahoma, came here when I was 3, moved back to Oklahoma for 6 months, and then moved back here when I was 8. So.
Okay, so if that counts.
Yeah, if that counts really.
Yeah,
so technically,
fair
I've been
enough.
in Wyoming most of my life, and what I know about Wyoming is that we're conservative when it comes to politics, and majority of our legislators are conservative Republicans and or Republicans when it comes to our politics. And I think that during this this legislative session that we had this year, I feel like some of our legislators were not thinking about the macro level of all human beings. They were targeting and focusing on specific either national agendas, or they were focusing and targeting on specific populations, or they were focusing on specific ideologies. And I think that ended up taking center stage this legislative session. Now, don't get me wrong, there were solid bills that got passed during this legislative session, but majority of those solid bills got passed. They were not political hot topic buttons that everybody was up in arms about. In terms of the school board, the school district, all of that, I think that we have some really good, solid school board members that want to look at the entirety of what's going to be best for children. Because I was a counselor in the school district, a social worker and a counselor for Natrona County School District for several years. And so some of the things that have been pushed, like book banning.
Yes.
Trans rights.
Yep, that was another one.
The voucher program.
Yep.
I'm probably missing a couple, but I'll focus on some.
Okay.
The trans rights with bathrooms. That was a big one.
Trans rights with bathrooms.
Yes,
There's still
that
some stuff going on. I heard about one poor child at Natrona County High School right now that is just being bullied every single day they try and go to the bathroom.
Really?
It is horrible. Yeah, kids are following them in there and trying to take pictures over the stalls and everything.
Wow.
It's bad. I don't know. Sorry.
Okay.
That's off topic.
No,
You don't have
no,
to.
I'm like, okay.
No, I know. You just said trans and bathrooms and I thought about that.
I'm going to be calling that word's representative. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
okay.
no, that's bad stuff. And then also, I think the other one the one that bugs me the most is parents being able to decide, like the school board trying to say what can be taught and not taught and talked about in schools and whatnot.
So,
because that doesn't seem like self-determination. That seems like this is a rule for everybody. You have to follow it.
No, that's not self-determination. And you know, I am completely firm on self-determination, but there's also an understanding that a lot of these things that are being said that are actually happening in the school district, I have not been given any data, any research, anything to support what they say is going on in the district. I never personally witnessed that myself, that teachers were trying to push trans rights on kids. I never witnessed that. Bullying, yes. Even in zero tolerance bullying type schools, there's going to be bullying no matter, like, you literally have to like look around the corner like 24/7 in order to not, I would love for there to be zero bullying.
Would you?
Period.
I have an interesting question for you.
Yeah, no, I would love to not have bullying, because from a social worker perspective and from a counselor perspective, like the bullying just doesn't stop with the incident and the primary interaction.
Yeah.
It continues offline. It continues emotionally. It continues mentally. And that individual on the back end definitely has to deal with some mental challenges, emotional challenges that are involved with that piece. So we can say that we have a zero bullying tolerance policy. And I think that, at least in the schools that I worked in, the principals, the teachers, I've talked with the superintendents a lot. I think that the focus and the goal really is to try to create a safe and supportive environment for children. I think that with what happened in this legislative session and what's been going on with some of the stuff that's been coming out with the school board, I think we're focusing and targeting on the wrong things. And I think that some of the things that are really happening, within the schools that are really challenging, like bullying, I think that we need to start focusing a little bit more in those areas, because our teachers in Atrona County, I've met lots of them over the years.
Yeah.
They are wonderful, solid to the core people. They just want to create a safe and supportive environment. But I think that when we start getting politics, ideologies, and school board members, you know who you are, when we start getting these folks in trying to push their bias and their belief systems off on the entirety of a school district, then we're in a melting pot, kind of like what we're in now, where we've got people on the board saying, you should believe in what I believe in, and you should do what I think is right. When, again, I have not been given any data, any research to support that these books that children are reading are somehow going to impact them negatively, or that somehow we need to have faith in schools, like that's been pushed a lot in the country as well. And I'm a very firm believer that people should be allowed to believe in whatever they want to believe in. I do stand my ground, though, on if you are pushing your belief system off on another person, then that's where the boundary line gets drawn.
I'll play devil's advocate for a second.
Absolutely. Play devil's advocate.
Okay, cool. It's an issue of morality.
Oh, isn't it though?
The family has the right to decide what our children learn about. And we're not pushing anything on you. You're pushing stuff on me by exposing my children to homosexual literature in schools.
I don't disagree with you with that. I feel like from a morality standpoint, I feel like we are kind of in a melting pot right now in terms of some people don't want certain things being taught in the schools, and some people are completely fine with it. I think that a parent has the right to self-determine, but that's where we draw the line. A parent does not have the right to self-determine what the entirety of the school district gets to do.
So would you be in favor of opting out? Like, I don't know if you read what happened in Maryland just last week, was it?
I didn't. What happened?
Okay. There was an issue.
I've been a little busy.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I know. Asking a mayor what goes on in another jurisdiction. It's completely fair.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm trying to keep up.
There was a book called The Knight and the Prince that was going around that has been since banned. I don't know, actually. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's been banned because I don't know it's been banned. Okay. But it's a substitute with knight and princess, and you know what the book's about.
Okay, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So the Maryland Supreme Court said that parents are allowed to opt their kids out of the reading of that book in classrooms. What do you like? So when it comes to opting out of certain things, how do you feel about that? Because that's just saying, I'm not going to get in the way of yours, but I don't want mine to do that.
I think that every school district will end up handling it differently, but me personally, again, I'm a research and data-based person, so
I like that. I think we need more of that in government.
I haven't seen any research or data to support that a teacher reading a book to children in a school is somehow going to make them gay, is somehow going to make them trans, is somehow going to...
It doesn't.
It doesn't. This is coming from a social worker background. It does not. As a mayor, I have not seen
And a
any.
degree in psychology too, so she
yeah.
kind of knows what she's talking about.
A
just
little
saying.
bit, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I have a bachelor's in psych too. But I don't think that, you know, the book banning thing, honestly, I don't support it. I don't support the book banning thing. Anybody who knows me well enough knows I don't support the book banning thing. I think that people should have the right to read whatever they want to read, to read about the entirety of history, not just the history that's being blanketed for us.
Yes.
You know, I personally have not seen teachers pushing all of these quote unquote inappropriate books onto the children. I never seen that when I worked in the district. I've got lots of friends who work in the district. They're also saying, I don't see this occurring and or happening, or I don't see that us reading literature is somehow going to make someone become something.
Yeah.
And I think that creates a false narrative as a whole on, because we're reading something, or because, like, let's take movies for instance, because we watch movies, does that mean that we are going to somehow do something wrong? We're going to make a bad choice. Is that movie going to somehow make us something?
I saw a study that said Call of Duty dangerous gunslinging video games did have an impact on violence in teenagers. It was just one study though, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So it can it?
So like gaming, I think that they've spent more time in the last at least 2 decades that I can recall. I feel like they've spent more time focusing on the research in terms of gaming than they have books or movies or
any
of the other things. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So, I feel grateful because I'm talking to somebody who has power and who can
Well, I
do
don't
something
know
about
about
it.
that.
Okay, I don't know. You have
Power comes from an ego space, and I am not an egotistical person.
Okay, I think the people of Evansville appreciate that. As an aside, it has been keeping me up at night. Evansvillites, Evansvilleonians, Evansvillans. What are you called?
Evansvillans.
Evansville. Yeah, I don't know. That one doesn't sound great.
We're not going to go with that one. You know, I don't think that we have. I don't think that we have a legitimate name.
Do you want to set one? You're the mayor.
I don't know. Evansville Residence is fine. I mean,
that's
do.
Boring.
Okay, but on a side note, I do have this running joke. That I'm the mayor of Evil.
You are. Wait. Oh, I get it. I see.
Evansville,
right,
Evil. Yes.
So Evansvillans.
You know,
it's official.
yeah.
We're gonna do it. Mayor said it. Mayor
I
said
did
it.
not
We're doing
say it.
Mayor
but,
said it.
But I think that that's a joke. So even on the challenging days, even on the tough days, I like to keep that that joke just in the back of my mind, because it helps to create a sense of lightness. Because politics, it's not sexy.
No.
It's gritty. It can sometimes be dangerous.
Sure.
It can sometimes be unpopular. And so I think that creating a sense of lightness within politics kind of helps us to breathe so that we can take the next step moving forward. It's a balancing game when it comes to this stuff.
So getting back to what I was saying, you are somebody who can do stuff. Like, you can do stuff. Right? Is that fair to say? If you don't have power, you sit here, or is this somebody else?
This is my seat. Yeah.
You should have been up there. I don't know. I should have been that.
Well, let's go up there. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. Sweet. I like this. Okay, now I'm gonna pretend like I'm in a town hall.
Oh, well,
I like it.
Okay. You get 3 minutes to talk if you're in a town hall.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, perfect. I like it. That's
and
cool.
you got to be respectful.
And do you have rules in your town hall meetings, like no cursing or stuff like that?
Yeah. So the big key thing, and this kind of goes.
And wait, I have to ask my question after this. Okay, we keep getting distracted.
Well, you're getting distracted. I'm on point.
Right on.
So, the biggest key thing with our council meetings is everybody has 3 minutes to talk.
Yep.
You have to come up to the podium, you have to say your name, and then you have 3 minutes on the clock in order to say what you need to say. I do ask that people be respectful. People can be passionate. They can say whatever they'd like to say to us.
Yeah.
But I do ask for them to be respectful, because I'm a very firm believer that respect for respect. If the emotion outweighs the message, then the message gets lost in what you are trying to articulate.
Wow, look at that. That is insightful. How about
I'm
that?
full of insightful stuff.
Okay, so anyway, my question has been lost in the ether. That's fine. I'll move on to my next one.
You'll come back around to it.
People don't often realize what politicians do, what government does, okay? So every time I interview any mayor or somebody who's in charge of a constituent of people, I ask them to tell their people one tangible way that their lives have been made better since you've been elected into office.
You know, I think the big thing for me is that when you get to see the look on someone's face because you stop by to say hello, they stop by to give you a card or a note, or they drop into your comments section on your page and they say, "You're doing great work. This is wonderful."
Mm-hmm. But what is the great work?
So like we're finishing our animal shelter for the town of Evansville. Stay tuned on that information.
Okay.
So we're getting ready to finish up our animal shelter, and this is something that we've been talking about for years, and we finally just pulled the plug on it last year and said we're doing this.
Right on.
So I think that just getting to go and walk through that last night and just getting to see all the cute, furry little friend decals and, seeing the kennels and seeing all the hard work, I'm going to choke up. I'm going to get a little teary-eyed with it a little bit. But it makes me, like, it's those moments that are like, yes, we can see these projects coming to fruition.
Yes.
We're doing something. Or like our $1 million playground.
I saw that.
I know, isn't it great?
Yes.
It's a Western theme. And
it is pretty cool, honestly.
And
I'm sad it's for kids.
It's not. I have slid down. I've done the xylophone. I've done all the things over there.
Okay. Right on.
We ran through it all. Even my police chief has slid down the slide as well.
I see. Yes. Police Chief Mike Thompson.
Yes.
Yes.
We're big kids at heart, but
we're going to talk about him later too.
But I think that the big key thing is when you see these projects getting completed, and then I'm over there during spring break, and I'm seeing all the kids smiling and they're happy, and the parents are coming up to me and they're saying, "Oh my gosh, this is so wonderful! Thank you so much for putting this together." Because I think that that's something. In Wyoming, because we're a rural state, in Natrona County, there's not a lot of things for kids to do. So sometimes we have to get creative, nature-based creative, most of the time to do that. And so it's important when those projects are coming to fruition. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm doing good work. Like the governing body, we're doing good work. We're really thinking about how can we make things better? How can we allow ourselves the opportunity to make it better for our residents and or people in Natrona County, because we've got people who come to our playground that don't even live in Evansville, and they're like, "You have the best playground." I got said that the other day when I was down there, and I'm like, just. But I will say though that the whole idea was my police chief's idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, no.
Okay.
He was out there. Yes, Chief Thompson.
Thompson, sorry.
He was out there. You can call him Mr. Thompson.
Oh, is it? I don't even know how to, because I don't never know.
Yeah, it's Chief Thompson.
Okay, that's the official.
But you could call him Chief Thompson.
I feel like you got to be respectful to cops, lest you meet one on the wrong side of the law
Absolutely.
one day.
And the one thing that I will say is he was out there every day. He brought saws. He brought table saws.
Oh, wow.
He was out there. He built the big windmill.
Yeah.
That's like on top of our big slide.
Yeah.
Like him and our fire department, they built that.
We'll throw up a picture of the drawing.
He was there from start to finish. He was actually the brains behind having it become a Western theme. And he was the brains behind finding the company and putting in all the legwork. And that's a part of what I think people don't understand is our police officers in the town, our fire department in town, our public works department, our admin, even me. I was out there building as well. I was out there drilling holes and doing all kinds of stuff because
Leading by example.
Absolutely, right? You got to get your hands.
Yeah.
You got to get your hands in there. But no, he was the brains behind the operation of the playground, and it was really nice to see. Because I don't think that sometimes people get to see those sides of our first responders, our police officers. Especially in this political climate, you don't always get to see some of the back end stuff that our folks do. And because we are a small town, our staff, they wear a whole lot of hats. I wear a whole lot of hats. They wear a whole lot of hats. And so even with like the animal shelter, our police officers were over there last night in training mode, trying to get trained on if they need to place a fur baby in one of the kennels, that they know what to do, that our animal control officer was going through all of that. So we wear a lot of hats.
I like it. All right, sweet. Yes, so to summarize, 2 tangible things you've done to make life better for the people of Evansville is a new playground and an animal shelter.
Yes.
That is more than enough.
I've got more plans though. Give me time. It's only been 15 months. Give me time.
Leadership is about bringing a community together and building a better tomorrow. You know who said that? She did. Cool.
There you have it. There you have it.
Okay, we have to pause for halftime. We'll be right back. Okay, sick. Let's talk about jobs. The median salary for men in your town of Evansville, this comes from the Census Bureau, is $49,250. Median salary for women is only $35,011. Why the change? Is that something you're concerned about? What's going on there?
You know, inevitably, I'm not concerned about that, at least in my town, because we did a wage study in 2022 when I was the council president, and we were under former Mayor Edwards. And the wage study across the board, everyone gets paid the same across the board when it comes to our wage study. Now, let's take, for instance, a person is in a higher ranking position. Obviously, they would get paid differently, but like say a male police officer and a female police officer, if they come in, they start at the same.
Got it.
They start at the same place.
Why the difference then? Is it because more men are in more positions of power, and then is that something you'd be worried about?
You know, I would say across the board that at least in our town, when it comes to our first responder positions and our police officers, we're male dominated in those arenas. Even with our public works. Our public works department, it's male dominated as well. Most of our admin staff is females. We do have female police officers and we do have, female firefighters, but everybody starts out at the same per our wage study from 2022.
Okay, cool.
So I
at
least on paper, I don't see the disparity. Now that does not mean that I don't think that the disparity is real. I absolutely do believe that the disparity is real in the state of Wyoming, but in terms of like when you see it on paper, at least for the town of Evansville, everybody starts in the same place unless they're in a higher ranking position.
Do you think then your town does a good job of promoting based on merit and not on like preconceived bias of who normally does a better role in the job?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I would say hands down, absolutely. Anybody who's ever met me is you know, we're not going to put people in positions, you know, just based off of, you know, specific factors.
Yeah.
It's going to be based off of who you are, what you have to offer, can you fill the role, do you have the credentials, do you have the certs?
Yes, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And
I
or
like
degrees and or background in order to do it. But we are a male-dominated
I think, but that kind of makes sense
male-dominated
though.
town.
Like
But
before everybody starts screaming.
There is something really great about, but we got a female mayor, you know?
Yeah, I know. The buck stops with a female mayor. I agree. I like that.
I think the same would be the same for a male mayor too, because my former mayor, he did a lot of things as well, and he was really great. Him and I have 2 different personalities, but he was really great. I worked with him for about 4 years.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, let me just make sure I hit record because I think I did, but I'm always paranoid that, yes, I did. Okay.
Well, and that's good because then we'd have to start over.
No, I know. That's to ask you the same. You'd just have more practice, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm always paranoid that I'm going to forget to do something with the camera, and then it's happened to me before where I've gotten into the editing room and realized there's no sound coming in or something like that.
That does happen.
Yeah.
I've been there myself.
I know. And then, I don't know. So I don't know. I always check. What do you want to talk about? State government or marijuana?
We could talk about both.
Which one do you want to talk about first?
We can go with marijuana.
All right, let's talk about weed.
Yeah.
Can you legalize it, please?
I definitely don't think I have that power.
Can you decriminalize it?
I don't have that power.
If you did, would you?
Yes.
Sick. Okay, wait, then how do we get it done?
You know, I think the thing about it is that we have to.
Because, all right, filling everybody in, weed is not illegal. Like, it's the most illegal in Wyoming. Like, that's fair to say. I've heard Wyoming, Iowa, and Nebraska are the 3 states that, like, just stay away from it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. It's not.
Yeah.
I lived in California before I lived here, so.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I'm not like all those people that
No.
are like, you're a transplant. No, welcome.
I'm not saying that for any reason other than the fact to shed light on the background of I agree with California's weed policies over Wyoming's, and that's the only reason why I said that.
What is California's weed policies?
Like, do it, you can, it's super legal, super encouraged, there's stores everywhere, you can do it pretty much wherever.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they take it too far, some people, in that, like, you would, like, if there's kids around, maybe have some respect. Like, if you're at, like, a park, maybe don't smoke the weed if you're, like, a bunch of families are having a picnic because it smells, but.
You know, my thought on this is there are more important things that we need to be focusing on versus marijuana is the end-all, be-all bad thing.
Yeah.
We've got child abuse. We have domestic violence. We've got assaults. We've got, you know, we have politicians targeting and focusing on their own ideologies. I think that when it comes to marijuana, the research does show that marijuana can be used for good.
For sure.
And it can be used for medicinal purposes. Do I think that, because you asked me the question of how do we get it passed,
Yes.
you know, I think that you would have to find a legislator, someone
But couldn't
in a
you-
House rep seat or a Senate seat, or someone who would be willing to front a bill.
Could you not pass a town ordinance that decriminalizes it in Evansville?
That I honestly don't know. Like, honestly, because
Yeah.
that hasn't come up in my 15 months.
Or,
So-
like, could you direct Chief Thompson to tell his officers not to pursue or arrest people for simple possession or use?
Yeah, that I don't know. I wouldn't look you in the eye and tell you that I know that part of it, just because that hasn't come up in the last 15 months of me being the mayor.
Okay.
So I feel like I would be, you know, I'd be running when I need to walk in terms of that piece to understand that side of it. Because there's a lot of things that you have to look at on the back end when it comes to state statutes, when it comes to ordinances, when it comes
see,
to
that stuff
the
I
town
have no
attorney,
idea about.
when it comes to the admin side. So it's not things on our side of it, of the podium. They take a lot of time. And my predecessor, the former Mayor Edwards, he had said, Candace, you have to think about it this way. Government works at a snail's pace.
Sure.
And it's very slow moving, and there's a lot of things that have to happen. And in order to even make one choice and one decision, minimum of 4 to 5 people have to be involved in any choice and any decision that I make as the mayor, including town attorneys, including our admin staff, including our, you know, our chiefs and or directors. You know, and if we're getting like a resident constituent buy-in, things like that, and there has to be tests that we have to do, and things that have to happen, surveys that have to happen, and then we've got our town engineer that has to come in and
Town engineer to legalize weed?
not to legalize weed, but in the overarching like projects of getting things accomplished and
playground,
done.
I'm sure.
The
Yes.
playground, yeah, things like that. So there's a lot of pieces that I think that people don't realize that have to go into kind of moving and pushing the needle forward.
But
and that was definitely something that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Even being on the council for the last 5 years, that wasn't something that I really wrapped my mind around yet. And then when I became mayor, it was like off to the races, learning 500 things in a very small amount of time. So honestly, within running 500 miles an hour, that topic has just not come up in the last 15 months.
How do we get it to come up? And I'm only, I don't mean to come off pushy, but transparently also,
No,
I
you're not
think
being pushy.
I align with
You're not
you
being
more
pushy.
politically than I do with a lot of the other people I interview around here.
Yeah.
And with them, I'm always like
Yeah.
pushing back. And with
Yeah.
you, I agree with most of what
Yeah.
you're saying, so
Yeah,
it's hard,
no,
but I'm just trying to push back. Like,
You know, I think it's fine. I think good conversation, good transparent conversation is key. I just don't have the answer for it. You know, I think that in terms of what I'm learning from the legislative side and the bill side is that, you know, we have to get someone who's willing to champion a bill.
could you? Or who would? Like, does this guy? You see what I'm saying? Or you're saying like it has to,
Yeah, we have to get someone to champion that bill, but also what I know from living in Wyoming most of my life, I think that you're going to find it hard pressed to find somebody who is willing to do that or is willing to tackle that area because, right? Why wouldn't we tackle the area? Well, it's because
just somebody has to do it eventually.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. But I don't have a clear answer for you because I don't know the clear answer to how we would get the needle moving forward. But give me time. Okay. And I can try to get some additional information for you on it.
I appreciate that. I like that. Thank you.
I don't like to run, and say, I think this or I'm feeling this one way when I don't have the answers to it. And I think that all too often as politicians we can sometimes run into a direction when we don't have the research and when we don't have any data to back up or support it.
I totally understand why you would, because it's like from the constituent side, it's like, okay, well, if people do what you do all the time, and it's like, well, this is boring, I'm tuning out. Yeah. You know what I mean? Obviously, people would be...
politics is not sexy.
That's what you said? Yeah, I know, that's what you said. Like, it's like, okay, of course.
I had somebody tell me the other day, they said, when are we going to get back to politics being boring again?
Yeah, I would like that too.
And I'm like, nah, I don't think that politics is, going to go back to getting boring. And so it's better to start having transparent, honest conversations, even if people don't like what we have to say.
Yeah.
Having transparent conversations and not guessing on how things get accomplished, but understanding that there's a lot of moving parts to getting it done.
So then in summary, I guess, would it be fair to say that if that needle moves and the right person comes and all the steps and processes goes, would you say that you wouldn't stand in the way of it becoming decriminalized, or would you even say that you jump on the pro side, or would you jump on the con side? I'll give you the
I wouldn't stand in the way of somebody wanting to decriminalize marijuana because I think that there's a lot of supportive aspects to that side of it.
Okay. Sick.
Now, if we were talking about another drug, that might be a different conversation, just because I've worked in substance use facilities as well.
Okay, sure.
But I wouldn't stand in the way of somebody championing that.
That's all.
Yeah.
I think that's all most people are asking for. We're not saying make heroin legal.
Yeah.
Probably be a bad idea. Or do you think that would be a good idea?
No, I'm good on that one.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm good on that one.
Do you ever speak with Loomis, Hageman, or Barrasso?
The last time
those are our senators and representative, by the way. Yes.
So Hageman and I have never met.
Oh, okay.
Loomis and I have never met. Barrasso and I have met several times.
Because he lives here.
He lives here, yes. The last time that I did have any interaction with him was during our 100-year celebration, where I was the grand poobah of the 100-year celebration.
What is that?
Before my time. But pretty much it's kind of the committee chair. So I was the committee chair.
Is it really called the poobah?
No, we just ended up using that term from I think it was like an old TV series.
That's badass. I like it.
I even have a big huge button that says Grand Poobah on it.
Oh, sick.
Evansville's Grand Poobah.
Is that like your Diet Coke button in the office?
No, it was just one that I wore around that day.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
I gotcha.
No,
yes.
But the last time that I had any interaction with him was during that, and that was in 23.
Okay.
That was in June of 23. June of 23.
The reason why I'm asking is because what I'm really gonna get to asking is why won't they come talk to us? Hageman did once in Laramie.
Yep, and
not good enough.
And I've heard that she is starting her town halls again. That's what I've heard. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but I've heard that she just recently had one. In the state, but I couldn't give you any specifics in regards to it because I haven't seen any live footage or anything on it. I think that
it feels messed up.
Yeah,
like we want things, they're supposed to get those things done, and they won't even talk to us.
Here's the thing, and this is not going to be a popular opinion, but this is what I've learned over 15 months, and it's going to be my own insight into this. Is I feel like politics in Wyoming. It's always been, we're not going to create waves. We're going to have I call it political niceties. So just recently, things have kind of ramped up politically, right?
Yeah.
And things have gotten a little bit more gritty and a little bit more, let's target this person, let's attack this person, let's say this about this person.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Wyoming I grew up in, the Wyoming even like, I don't know, 10 years ago, wasn't like this.
Yeah.
We weren't targeting each other. We weren't bashing each other. We weren't having town halls to bash each other. I think
Which
that,
I don't want to have a town hall to bash them.
yeah,
I just want to.
No, you want answers.
Yeah.
You want answers.
Not even. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to ask questions.
I just
You
want to ask. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Why are you supporting an immigration
Absolutely.
bill?
And
have you seen the space we have here?
Yeah,
We have
absolutely.
room.
And I think it's political niceties. I think that as a whole in Wyoming, like we haven't had a lot of people pushing a different agenda in Wyoming. And I don't think that people are used to that. Politicians are used to that pushback. They're not used to people asking hard questions. They're used to there being civil disagreements. They're not used to people saying, this is how we feel, this is why, and we're going to show you with protests. We're going to show you with coming to your town halls. We are going to show you with our frustrations, with our emotion. We want to show you those things. And I really don't think, I think it's unprecedented in Wyoming for politicians to see that side. And I think that, and this is my own personal opinion, but I think that that's taken them aback because they weren't prepared for there to be pushback. That's at least my thoughts.
Let's talk about the court situation then, because people have said that it's happened to them and they've warned me not to get arrested in Evansville on like a Tuesday, because then it'll be 5 days.
I have also equally heard that over my time as being the mayor. I think that our police officers, because I've gotten a lot of time to spend with them in the last 15 months, so I've gotten to know all of them, on a personal level and on a professional level. And I would say that our officers, they are very diligent and very specific with taking their role and their responsibility of the protectors of the town extremely seriously.
Which is, I think, a good thing. That's probably what you'd want.
Absolutely a good thing. And I think that when we're looking at it from that standpoint, we're not always going to be able to make everyone happy when it comes to law enforcement, because law enforcement kind of has an
obviously no one's going to be
cloud.
happy about being arrested for
No,
stealing, but
no.
that is something that you don't want. So I get it.
No, and I think that that's the other side too. Is on the other side, the constituents who do email, the constituents who do come into council, things like that. Over the years they have talked about. Wanting to make sure that we don't have, theft or vandalism. Like we just had a vandalism situation at our new playground. And
that's not good.
Yeah, and we had to address that. And I think that our police department is very firm, and they take their roles and their responsibilities very seriously as the protectors of our town. And I know that sometimes people may see that as they're overstepping a line, or they're, they may not feel like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. At least in the last 15 months that I can say that I have been mayor, I haven't had any constituents coming to me sharing, any of this information with me. So what I would implore everybody is, let me know, reach out,
True.
Like come
How
to a
can you
meeting.
fix something that you don't know about?
Yeah, exactly. And in our governing body, we would even say the same thing, that how can we fix something that we don't ever hear about? Like people can, run their mouths on social media, or
True.
They can
actually do something.
They can have a conversation with Joe Schmo from down the street. But if we don't know, how are we supposed to do anything? And then at that point, if we don't know, how am I supposed to address the situation with the police chief or the police officers
fair enough.
or stuff like that?
Okay, but one thing that you do know about is the judge not being here every day.
Yeah, that is correct.
So what
correct.
What about that? Can we do something about that?
So the judge is not a full-time staff employee here for the town of Evansville. So
Sure.
budgetary constraints, all the lovely stuff from this
Right.
from legislative
All
sessions
the
and things like that.
snail pace process.
Yeah.
Stuff?
So You know, as long as I can remember being on council, the judge has not always been here every day.
Is there anything to be done about that, though? Because it's not super fair
yeah,
that somebody
yeah.
could just have to sit.
That's also, that would be an area I'd have to get back to you on, because really I don't know the answer to that. I look you in the eye and tell you I don't know the answer to that. I just know that that's the way it's always been. I know that that would fall in line with the budgetary constraint. You know, I think
Could
in
we
terms...
send them to Casper or something? Or Mills?
Let me get back to you on
Okay,
that.
all right.
I don't want to, you know...
I'm fighting for the people. I'm trying to fight for the people, that's all.
I'm trying to fight for the people, too. No, but I think it's easier in Casper, because Casper they have a bigger budget. They have more staff.
True.
You know, they've got more resources.
2 whole courtrooms.
Yeah, they've got more resources and more capability to do something like that. And I think that when we're looking at the rural towns and the smaller towns in the state of Wyoming, I feel like we're kind of at a disparity situation when it comes to all of those resources and all of those financial budgetary constraints that we deal with from a municipality standpoint. And so I feel like those things play an active role. But if there's something additional that I come up with, I'll reach out to you, and then you can like add, or we can meet again and you can re-ask me those questions, and I can get you some answers in regards to some of those things.
I think at the end of the day, what I'm hearing is, come sit in the chairs behind the camera and ask you questions when you're sitting up here, and that's how we get stuff done.
Yeah, I mean, we're championing the idea. We want to hear from people. We want to hear from people about the good, bad, and the ugly things. We want to hear from people. All I ask is that when you're up here, you can be passionate. That's fine, but you know, don't be calling us names, and don't be disrespectful. And you know, respect for respect. You know, I will respect you if you respect me. We don't have to agree on things.
That also creates the world we want to live in, I think.
Absolutely.
I mean, why do we just want to? It doesn't feel good to me to scream at somebody.
Yeah, because it comes down to that human aspect of things. Everybody has feelings. Everybody has thoughts.
Yeah.
And it hurts just as much when someone is either physically and or emotionally coming at us.
Sure.
And especially when you're sitting up there in those positions, it can be hard to want to engage in those sides. But then from a constituent standpoint on the other side, why aren't you answering my questions? Why aren't you, answering my emails? Why are you giving me a blanketed statement? Why can't you just tell me the truth? And I think that that's a part of where the frustration and the compassion comes from, is because it's the political niceties. Not every politician wants to put themselves on Front Street in Wyoming. It's not good, it's not bad, it is what it is. You know, every single person is going to end up tackling these challenges a little bit differently. And Evansville, we will be having a town hall where constituents can come and they can ask me in-person questions. And we're going to be getting that set up. I've been working on it for the last couple of weeks, so we're going to get it set up. And I've actually got a couple of legislators that are willing to have real raw conversations about what really happened at the legislative session. So we're working on getting everybody's schedules kind of put in place right now to figure that out.
Okay.
But
where can people stay updated on that?
Yeah, so they can follow me on my Facebook mayor page. It's just Mayor Candace Machado.
Okay.
That's how they can find me. I may have a TikTok at some point.
Okay.
You know, I'll let you guys know when I go that direction, all of the things. But that's how people will be able to stay up to date. Also on the Town of Evansville's page, we'll go ahead and we'll let folks know about it as well. Obviously, we can try to communicate as much as we can to the broader masses to get to get the information out there as much as we can. But yeah, I'd really like to see people come, and I'm willing to hear anyone as long as it can be a productive conversation, and I can feel the passion, I can feel their hurt, I can feel their struggle and their challenges, but we can also find some kind of a solution moving forward, because I really like when people can air out their frustrations with me, but they can also come with real world solutions on, okay, if we don't like this, how would we get to this next level place? How can we get there? How can I help? You know, how can our governing body help? And I think with the governing body, I was at the Democratic Party's meeting not too long ago, and the Democratic chair had said that Evansville's town hall, and I can't remember the other place that he said, it'll come to me, but he said that our council board is one of the most progressive in the state.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because 3 out of the 5 of our council members are progressive.
Which is wild, because
are
this
progressive folks.
Do you think Evansville as a whole is more progressive than I seem to get the impression that it is, or like how does that work?
No, I still think it's conservative.
Uh-huh.
I still think it's conservative by the most part, but I think that what I'm getting from a lot of the constituents is a lot of people know where I lie within my political beliefs, or my thought processing on how I view the world. But I think that I've been able to find this middle ground for the majority of it, where people are understanding that all I want to do is move the town forward. All I want to do is help people in the entirety as much as I possibly can. But within that, when it comes to changing ordinances, when it comes to writing bills, when it comes to changing laws, the big takeaway is it takes time.
Sure.
I would like to hit the ground running and be like, done, 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 done.
Executive mayor actions, orders?
But actually, it's not as easy as what it looks like out there in media land. It's like when you're in the thick of it, it's not easy to change these things. You have to have 3 readings. There might have to be resolutions that might have to happen. You have to wait for council meetings, because then we're required to do certain things when we're addressing these open public forum conversations. And so it can end up feeling like you're wanting to run at 500 miles an hour, but you're running at a snail's pace trying to get these things done. And I think that that's been, I wouldn't say it's been a frustration, but it's definitely been a challenge on my end the last 15 months, that you want for things to move quickly. And that's just not the process of how government functions and runs, unfortunately.
Yes.
But I'm championing everybody. Let's chat. Let's email me if you have a work schedule that you can't do. With that being said, I've been emailed by lots of constituents saying, can we get this? Can we get that? Can you help with this? And some things I absolutely can try to figure out and problem solve. And then there's going to be some things that they're asking me, and it's like, it's going to take me time to try to figure out how can we even address that situation. We've had lots of different things that have taken place that it takes more time to try to figure it out. And sometimes it's just it comes down to money. Especially in small municipalities, it comes down to money. And especially because the town of Evansville, along with other municipalities in the state of Wyoming, with property tax cuts that happened this legislative session, that's going to end up impacting us. And that's going to hurt the small municipalities.
Yeah.
Because, legislators and our constituents, they might not understand when we say we're going to lose maybe minimum of $112,000 a year in the town of Evansville. Like, that's a large chunk of money that we have to figure out, okay, where are we cutting from? Like, are we talking payroll? Are we talking?
Oh, true.
Are we talking equipment?
Definitely not hiring a judge for another day.
Are we talking services? Are we talking some of those things? So some of the things that you raised, I think sometimes it comes down to money, and as much as I would like to say that it doesn't, sometimes it's financial, budgetary constraints, and it's like, I would love to champion that idea. I don't know how we're going to get there, and that's the challenge. I mean, there's 500 challenges. I've personally been met with 500 challenges as a young female mayor in Natrona County, because myself and Leah Juarez, she's the mayor in Mills, her and I are the only female mayors in Natrona County.
Yeah, well, cool.
In the municipalities, and then even when you look at like the county commissioners, that's male dominated. The other mayors, they're male dominated. So Leah and I, we bounce a lot of ideas and thoughts off of each other, and even those conversations of like, oh, today was a rough day, because you're not always going to get those bright and shiny days where you're like, yes,
Yeah.
I am doing good things in the world.
Yes.
There's also on the other side of it, there's those moments when you're like, that was a really hard freaking day, and that really sucked, and I didn't like it, and it didn't make me feel good. And I feel like when you're in these roles, in these positions, you are going to be faced with things that you don't want to be faced with. They're making you uncomfortable. It can be an unsafe situation. I've been in those situations as well.
That's not good.
So there's a lot of challenge, but there's a lot of wonderful things that come out of being in these positions as well, because then you really get to see that you're trying to make a difference. Will I be able to address every single person's, frustrations and their challenges? No, and I'm not going to look them in the eye and tell them I'm going to be able to have a solution for every single thing that they're wanting, even like with the property tax stuff. Residents want their property taxes lowered. I'm a resident in Evansville too. Great, whoo, little more change in my pocket,
Yeah.
Totally understand that part.
Yes.
But then when you're looking at it from the opposite side of
You're like, how are we going to pay for all the stuff you want?
how are we going to pay for all the things that all the people want? And it's like,
Yeah.
that's one of those hard days where you're just like, I don't have an answer for this.
Yeah.
And I think that's transparent, and it's raw, and it's real, that we're not going to be able to tackle everything.
Sure. All right, I will
Yeah.
leave it there.
Yeah.
You've been very gracious with your time with me. Thank you very much for talking.
Thank you for
I
having
appreciate
me.
it. Thank you for being a voice and a good example of how politicians should act, I think.
I am trying every single day.
Do you have like a mayoral sign-off or anything to shout to the people? Or, what do you do? I feel like there has to be an official way to end the conversation with the mayor.
So, what I would say is be compassionate, be kind to your neighbor, show love out there in the world, and set a good example for those that maybe are challenged by that.
All right, right on. Sweet. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Cool.